I think a lot of people expect a buck to commit suicide and be walking around and not utilizing the wind. And, there was an advertising slogan one company had years back: forget the wind, just hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the buck don't forget the wind. I guarantee you, a mature buck does not forget the wind. And that's what I really show in my whitetail master course when these students come and we go to the stand sites. That's what the comments they made is. That's what was the eye opener for them, because I'm describing why that buck would even walk past that stand.
Mm-hmm.
What would make him walk past that stand on any given day? And it's all based on the wind direction. He's walking past because when he walks past there, he's using the wind to his advantage to do this or that, either to keep himself safe or to search for hot does, and probably both.
Yep. Can you explain to us, Don, maybe even in the month of like October, like what type of a scenario would you be looking for where a deer is using the wind to his favor that you can capitalize on?
Well, the other thing is you gotta have an idea where that buck is coming from and where he's headed to. It's not just, when I started years ago, when I was deer hunting, I would just go in the woods and, wow, there's a nice trail. Here's a tree. I'll sit in this tree by the trail. The wind is blowing my scent away from that trail. All's good. Well, it's not, because you got to figure, how's it working for the buck? So in an early season situation, a buck is bedded at point A, and in the afternoon, he's going to get up and feed, and the prime feeding area is over here at point B. So he's walking from point A to point B. He would like to do that with the wind at his advantage. But if you've got, instead of just a straight nose wind, if he's got a quartering wind that's kind of hitting his nose, quartering into his nose, that allows you to get off to the side of the trail he wants to use.
Yeah.
He still has a quartering nose wind, but there's no way he can smell you because you're on the right side of the trail where your scent's blowing away from that trail, kind of down the trail, but away from the trail.
I'm with you.
And that's exactly what I used last year on the second buck that I shot. Now I've got a YouTube channel, Chasing Giants YouTube channel, and there's a buck on there, Joey. I called the buck Joey. Mm-hmm. And I describe, that hunt and on that video and everything, but that's exactly what he was doing. That buck was coming down a trail. The wind was quartering into his nose, and he almost caught my scent, but that trail turned, and he turned. And when he turned, if he would have kept going straight, he would have hit my scent. But right before he hit my scent stream, he turned. And that buck was doing everything a mature buck should to stay alive. He was using the wind the way a mature buck should. And yet I was to the side in such a way that he couldn't smell me.
Yeah, man, there's some cool spots like that. When you find them, it seems like you just kill deer there year after year, as long as that food source remains. I was talking with Jeremy even before the podcast. So in your situation, where if we know buck is coming from point A, wants to make it to food source B, if C is us, the hunter, our setup, it seems like that buck will come from point A and parallel the food source B for as long as he possibly can on the downwind side. So he'd be on the eastern side, walking it all the way out until he feels like he smelled almost all of it. And if I can find a terrain feature that is at the very end, he's like, okay, I can see the end of this wood lot, and here's the food source I've been paralleling. I'm good. I've got everything covered. And he'll turn up right before you. And I'm in that last 20, 30 sections of wood with the wind coming. I'm going to call from Remington, right out of the food source, even over into more bedding area below me and stuff. It doesn't matter because that buck used that parallel trail all the way out. And so he's good, but I've still got him.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they do. And a lot of times these bucks, when they're coming back to bed in the morning, they know where they want to bed. And what I've noticed, I picked up on it years ago, just tracking a buck after a rain. It rained the whole night before, and I was going into a stand to hunt one afternoon, and I seen a single set of big tracks. I knew it was a buck, figured it was a mature buck. And I just followed those tracks in the mud to see how that buck entered his bed.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, a light bulb went off, and I've seen it so many times since then. But what these bucks like to do is they know they want to bed somewhere, and they'll run the downwind edge of that to scent check that whole bedding area. And then once they get past, they will J-hook right back into bed.
Yep.
And if you don't see them making that downwind sweep of the area first, and you only see them after they've made the turn,
yep.
I mean, you'll swear that buck's walking into bed with the wind at his back. And that's not what's happening at all. He's already scent checked and then made that J-hook to come back in. And
then he can watch his back trail once he's in his bed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start to look at, and again, evolution through the season, but if you think about that October timeframe, like I killed that buck behind Jared, was a 162-inch deer here in PA. I knew where he was bedding, and he was heading to a scrape that he had hit. And so my idea was if I could get him between them, it was in the evening. We had a big front through basically the thermals were pulling my scent back behind me. But the way that there was just a slight wind is I knew if he came off of that, because the wind had switched in midday when this front came through, but he had already bedded down. He was going to come off this hillside and basically make a cut right in front of me around the terrain to get to the scrape, and he did. And you start to look at that and say, okay, that might be in October. Maybe it's a food source, maybe it's a scrape, maybe it's both. And then as it progresses towards November, it becomes these bedding areas, right? And checking for does and downwind and stuff. And so, again, just, you got to break this thing down. And I think the hard part for most people, especially the people, it's no knock, not everybody can live deer hunting and management 365. A lot of us think it so much year round, but you have to be so responsive in your thinking because, this week is different than next, which is different from the next week. Like every week is changing so fast that if you can't think intuition and respond, you're gonna miss out on opportunities.
Take me